SupaMika.
Hey everyone, SupaMika here. As I mentioned in a previous video, I've been watching live-action manga adaptations recently, and I wanted to talk about them. Here we go again. To start with, I want to talk about the Tokyo Ghoul live-action movies. I kinda chose Jake's cosmetics here to match Kaneki's costume from the movies, by the way. Oh, looks like she has Iron Maiden. I kinda wish this hairstyle was available without the shades, but it will have to do, I guess. Oh, I should mention that I'll probably be referencing minor spoilers for Tokyo Ghoul's story. I'll avoid giving specific details whenever possible, though. I better go slowly so I don't leave any tracks. There are currently 2 Tokyo Ghoul live-action movies, and I enjoyed both of them quite a lot. God damn it, Steve! Now she's gonna come here. Anyway, they're both faithful to the manga, even adapting some stuff that the anime skipped or changed, like, oh! Toka training Kaneki to fight. The first movie adapts the beginning of the manga all the way to Kaneki's first fight with Amon. Something to note is that the anime switched around the order of the initial arcs, so the movie is actually more accurate to the original story in that regard. Seems she ditched me? Oh. The visual effects aren't perfect, but they look pretty good all things considered. Is she trying to snipe me or going after someone else? The Kabune have a much more organic look to them than the brightly colored depictions in the anime, which I think is more fitting for the live-action medium. Guess I'll save you then. Nope. The budget was likely not as high as most Hollywood films, but it still did a pretty good job. Oh, hey Steve, you want a back rub? Do me first though. Okay, I'll do you first. A really cool detail I liked about the movie is how it incorporated tarot card references into scenes like the manga did. I only remember one specific instance, since it's been a while since I watched the first movie, where the death tarot card appears in the background, but there may have been others. Alright, the trailers for the first movie had the Roman numerals for specific cards, like the Hanged Man, worked into certain shots. The acting was pretty good despite the occasional awkward line or two. Some characters, like Kureo Mado, were played a bit differently than the anime and manga. Mado was often more quietly menacing, rather than over-the-top psychotic, but I felt it worked in live action. In some other live-action adaptations I've seen, attempts to portray over-the-top characters accurately to the source material often ends up being very awkward to watch. So I think they made the right decision here, toning down Mado a bit. No, none of that! Go away! Weirdly, Kaneki himself had a few over-the-top moments that weren't there in the manga. They weren't inconsistent with his character. He has done similar things in the manga and anime, but I find it a bit questionable to include these traits in some scenes. Yeah, she's persistent. Right, the scenes in question, specifically in the battle between Kaneki and Amon. This fight was made much more dramatic and action-packed than in the manga and anime, while on the other hand, Toka vs. Mado was toned down a lot. I won't go into detail, but some changes made certain lines and plot setup not really work as well as it did in the source material. Look up the fights if you haven't seen them, you'll see what I mean. Let's see if I can pop an unbreakable before she gets back. It's not.
Yeah.
Nancy, what are you doing? Anyway, the sequel, Tokyo Ghoul S, was also very enjoyable. Toka's new actor, who replaced the previous one, who didn't come back due to some religious reasons. Look it up, it's an interesting read. Does a great job and portrays the character consistent with the first film and the manga. Tsukiyama, much like Mado, was toned down in terms of over-the-topness, but he's still entertaining to watch, and genuinely rather menacing. I'm not a huge fan of his movie mask design, but it does look very creepy. Sota, the clown, has some interesting scenes, which will be a big treat for fans of the manga. Those scenes should be very interesting for anime-only viewers. We didn't get to learn much about the character's involvement in early parts of the story. Hell, I'm sure most probably don't even know who he actually is, since it's barely touched on in the anime. There is some great setup for future storylines, though they do spoil some later reveals, so I suggest watching this one after finishing the anime and manga first. Actually, if you plan to stick to the anime only, then it might be worth watching it before the third season, since some of those details were revealed at the end of the original manga, but skipped by season 2, while others hint at but don't necessarily outright spoil later stuff, since details are kept vague, and seeing those scenes would probably make some season 3 moments more impactful for anime-only viewers. I really want a third movie, but I hope them teasing future events isn't an attempt to wrap up the rest of the story in a third original film plotline. It seems unlikely, but it isn't often that live-action adaptations of manga get several films, and with so much content left to adapt, I could see them possibly trying to do an original conclusion of some sort, mixing in elements from later in the manga. Probably isn't outright impossible to do, but it would be a huge letdown. Here's hoping we get more sequels that continue to be accurate to the manga. Hey, maybe they'll even adapt some of the arcs the anime skipped. Anyway, that's about it. I definitely recommend checking out these movies. They're much better than a lot of the awful ones you always hear about, and they're definitely worth the watch. Oh, that didn't go well. I suppose it's kind of fitting since I'm talking about Tokyo Ghoul being a tragedy and all. So that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, please help out my channel by liking, sharing, subscribing. If you know anyone who would be interested in this topic, please send it to them. I appreciate all your support. Thanks so much, and see you guys next time. Bye.